Jeff Hughes, how's it going?
That's going well. How about yourself, Keith?
Yeah, I'm doing all right.
Yeah. Hanging out in the jungle, looks like.
Yeah, hanging out in the jungle. This picture behind me, my dad's wife painted it, and it's the best backdrop I could possibly have, actually. It's really
Nice.
nice. So, well, thanks for coming on, man. You and I have a pretty good little history together. We've worked together quite closely. Jeff is kind of an IT guru. He was one, I would say so. He was
Sure.
one of
Pretend.
go ahead, bud.
I said I like to call myself that, or if depends on who's asking, but I'm either an accountant or an IT person. So
And that's funny. That's exactly right. I was going to kind of segue directly into Revolution here, but you were one of the four founders of the company, and you were kind of this flex role between handling accounting. Turned out that was a lot of land work also.
yeah,
And then then you did the entire IT for the whole company. Geosystems, getting everything plugged into the Spotfire projects and all that. What exactly did you do?
yeah. That was it was fun times. So back in 2018, a couple of us were working at Chaparral Energy at the time, and my boss Scott Van Sickle had decided that he wanted to kind of pursue an asset that came across our desks, and I think Chaparral kind of passed on it. And when I remember getting a text that said, "Hey, do you want to start a company?" I said, "Absolutely," and no questions about what am I going to do, what are we going to do. So I just kind of dove in, and call it young and naive or what. We had no doubts that we could do it. So we picked up an asset, and everything kind of fell to me. It was three ops guys and then myself. I was an accountant by degree, and in the recent years I had done kind of technology. So I decided that I could handle an outsourced accounting team, and then I could build my own IT infrastructure. And
You did.
yeah, we got some quotes locally, and they were super, super expensive. And at that time, we were trying to keep things cheap just so we had as much war chest as we could. And so we bought some refurbished servers and kind of patched those together and stood them up and built out a kind of a data infrastructure where we're pulling from different applications. At the time, we built everything on the WellView database kind of back end, and then we're able to push and pull data through everything doing
So
that.
everything hit WellView first, and then that would go to the Spotfire project.
Yeah, that was kind of our backbone was the WellView WV100 database if you're in the data world. But it was had the well data, had all the job data, had some light geo tables, some light land tables, but you can match it to your accounting data. So basically every application we got, we tried to marry down to SQL. So then we could have all of these databases talking to each other.
Yep.
And then I could serve it up wherever, whether it was Spotfire, whether we pushed it to kind of the stuff you were using or over to land. But yeah, like we ended up partnering with LandVantage here at OKC, and they dumped us a SQL dump nightly. So we got all of our land data that way. But yeah, I handled accounting and IT, and then I even ended up like answering our owner relations line, which was always interesting to talk to owners on different questions they had. Because, I remember, I think one thing I forwarded you was a owner who asked why we weren't running seismic out in the Welu.
Oh, right. I remember that.
It was like, Keith, do you want to take this?
I tried to get us to run seismic. Actually, we could have, and I kind of wish we would. But, there is a weird context with that now that $3 million would have factored into the end of the day. And so,
Yeah.
Like you were saying, we had really streamlined systems. And just another little point here, I was the first person you guys hired.
Yep.
And it was you'd been going for like a month, 2 months, 3 months, something like that.
Yeah. I think it was, it was within the 6-month mark. I know that.
Yeah, for sure. I think it was before, maybe more like 4 or 5 months, but I was there pretty early. And so you and I kind of set up the geosystems. You'd had like a rudimentary Petra project set up. But then when I came in, we started messing with the geo stuff. And fortunately, I have a really strong background in that too. So what systems, we started with Petra. That's kind of the baseline, but through inheritance and other things, once we reverse merged Jones, we started picking up other licenses with those mergers. So we ended up with a Petra and a geographics license. We had a Kingdom license too.
Yeah, I remember we had a lot. Most of it was kind of out of my skill set, but as far as like infrastructure, that was what I was managing for you.
Well, but the thing is, you were able to get in there and do it. Remember all the Petra project stuff?
Yeah.
And the key was, and really, I think this is a good thing to kind of talk about, especially in a small company. And I saw it work on the bigger companies too, like remote desktop to independent standalone machines. And we had some stuff that we learned there. having to do with graphics cards, like how the whole system works. Like what do you remember specifically about that? I remember the biggest takeaway was to have their own machines with good graphics cards to be able to handle the back end, and then
Yeah, no,
just remote in.
that's something. So my current company, PointFlow, we do kind of outsourced IT management, and then we also build databases, data warehouses for customers. But that's a constant issue we run into is everybody wants to go to the cloud and have these quote easy buttons. The problem becomes, as we experienced even locally, is that servers are really, really bad at GPU power, like graphics cards, right?
Exactly.
Unless you're
Yep.
like a Bitcoin miner kind of stuff.
Yeah, and this is geology stuff is the most graphic out of
Yeah.
everybody, right? Like
Yeah.
everybody else is processing numbers, like we turn numbers into pictures, and so we've got to have a graphics card on the back end, no question.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, even when you get real heavy down into Spotfire and start integrating like maps and
Yeah, exactly.
QGIS exports, ArcGIS stuff is the online servers, virtual machines start to really struggle. So we right now our favorite setup is kind of what we did at Revolution is we'll do a hybrid setup where you've got kind of the power and ease of the cloud, right? And then we'll throw like a local server, and then we'll join it to the intra AD. So it becomes a hybrid. You got an on-prem server that's joined to like a cloud Active Directory. And then we'll do the same thing we did is we buy like a big workstation with a really nice graphics card.
Yep.
And that's what runs the applications. And that's what has to do it. It has to run the geographics and the Petras and the kingdoms and the Spotfires with heavy mapping, or else you're just going to clog it up and you're going to overpower it because they don't have those graphics cards, right?
They don't. And I mean, we have firsthand experience with that. Remember, we inherited this super expensive cluster. Like, you can explain more of what it is, but we get this.
Yeah, it was a $200,000 4-server setup that couldn't run Petra.
Exactly. They couldn't generate maps and stuff. And that's when we actually had to like toggle. I'd had the experience with it before from White Star. We'd kind of been through it. And it was really through the Petra hosting, the way that we did it at White Star, that kind of gave me an idea of how we could do it here. And then geographics was actually quite a bit easier, in terms of how we had to serve it up. But, at the end of the day, the fundamental idea is the same, is that it's kind of like the cloud. And like you say, the hybrid is the way to go. You've got a local resource that can pump out, depending on how many geos you've got. But one good workhorse we found can serve 2 to 3 full-blown geologists at one time.
Yeah, I mean, there's graphics cards that are built just for those workstations, right? They're massive, massive things. As we had one hanging out the back of your computer, but we did. they don't fit in servers. It's
right.
Like that's why you've got that issue. Is you've got this rack-mounted 2U, 4U server, and they've got graphics cards in them, but they're nowhere near the power of
Dude, I hadn't even thought about that, but that's exactly why. I was thinking, well, why isn't it on the server? In the back of my head, I guess, but these are like blades and all this. It's a specific configuration that's racked up, as opposed to
it's newer too, right? So most of the graphic advancements in graphics cards have been due to gaming. And then more recently, the crypto mining is that kind of power. Historically, your applications have just needed RAM. And so like that's why your servers come with 512 gig of RAM. Like there's massive, massive servers with a bunch of storage. So they can run compute and they can have storage, but they can't render very well. And that
exactly right. They can hold all this data at one time, indexed even, right? But that's a different animal than imagery and rendering. You enter into kind of different computing needs. So yeah, that's really cool. I think that system works. Actually, I'm fixing to sign up with a big consulting firm, and I'd be doing the same thing. I'm just going to remote desktop in, and all my resources will be either handled, remotely there, or some local stuff. Like StarSteer is still installed locally, but they're integrating a lot more cloud stuff. But again, that's not one that's going to have to be server run anytime soon. It's really the big box stuff, the geographics, the kingdoms, the stuff where you can load and update production data and just, large data sets.
And I think that's what's kind of tipped the scales is I don't know, 10 years ago, these applications could run on someone's computer just fine. But now that we're in this like data heavy, data warehouse type world where you want data to move automatically and seamless between systems, is you've got to have kind of that marriage of both. So how do we automate this data flow? But then how do we still keep the power of these individual like user workstations? And that's an interesting balance that I think is ever changing.
I agree with you. And, really the bottom line of this is another thing that I would say was a big focus and success on Revolution's part is this type of data integration and, being able to hook into the back end kept me from having to have like a geotech, and kind of kept the G&A to a minimum,
Yep.
because automating the data transfer and this type of stuff, it just saves money. Yeah, I did not need the type of like physical personnel support as I had in the past. So I think the system works.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, my mindset, and since leaving Revolution, like PointFlow has focused on this is one data point, one entry point, and then integrate between systems. So we've got, and we had it at Revolution, but you've got SCADA, which pulls the device on site, right, to your tank level, your gas meter. Then it says, okay, pull those into a data warehouse, display those in Ignition or whatever UI you want. Now calculate your daily volumes on that automatically. Take those daily volumes and push them, even the tank levels, all that kind of stuff, back into like a pumper app, so they can see it, so the pumpers can see it and say yes or no, confirm. And then you take that confirm number from the pumpers and push it across the company. So now you've got production flowing essentially automatically through everything. And you can kind of do that across the board with costs, with land data, ownership interests, that kind of stuff.
So where's your entry point? So, and I'm thinking, and I don't know if they're a competitor or whatever, but Conduit, is there a hub that you've developed that is that entry point that then kicks it out to people? Or, you've lost me in terms of my technical knowledge here. So kind of explain that to me.
All good. Yeah, no, I would say Conduit to date hasn't been a competitor. They've built the conduits, so like if you want to go connect to, I don't know, Inveris and pull the data down to SQL, Conduit has a
or IHS or any form of this, our production, the big data that gets updated as people drill and oil comes out of the ground.
Correct. They've since tried, I think they're moving into like the golden record piece, but they still don't have a lot of, like, what we end up building is like the push back to the pumper app. Like, it's really the moving the data between systems where I end up working. Whereas Conduit's, I think Conduit's still in the realm of like creating the golden record and then having that central database where someone can log in and be like, okay, what's this well name, right? Like, or what's this API, or what's this county? And you create that standardization. It's just, when we do that. We build the data warehouse where we'll do a well header table, a production table, a cost table, and like a forecast table. And we'll use that fed by different systems, and every single operator is different. Everybody has their own opinions on what they're going to use.
Right.
And then we'll feed it across. So, I mean, we use Conduit like for a couple clients. I like Charlie and them. They do a great job.
Yeah, no, I was happy with what I saw with it. I just didn't know if so that's something you can bolt on or use with what you're
I'd say like a 5% overlap, 10% overlap.
Okay.
But yeah, not too much.
Okay. Well, now I remember, you had a big focus with the SCADA data, and then you're setting up all the Wi-Fi, so we were kind of direct feeding that into the system. Are you still doing that kind of stuff, or is it all just SCADA data? They've got their infrastructure and telecom already kind of set up. Like,
no, we've got 3 clients that we are the full IT team for. And then I've got 6 that I do just data for. So they've either have an in-house IT person or they've got an IT team, and I build data. And then I've got a separate company called PointFlow Technologies that we've built a low-code, kind of a WellView replacement. And we've got, I think last count was 12 customers on that using that.
That's awesome.
Application.
And I remember I joined one of your, what is it, bourbon and data? What is the...
It's ever-changing.
Yeah, I keep doing those. I enjoyed it.
Whiskey and data night. Yeah.
I was the only geologist in there, but I love it. But yeah, talk about your data night, and then talk more about PointFlow Technologies, because I really do love software competition. I like the small guy. I'm in a position now where, like, I have to sign up with somebody to really be able to afford. I can't go out and do annual subscriptions as an independent dude. I can't afford it. I mean, Starsteer alone, I'm not going to talk about their prices, but between that and, Petra, which is, all in you're going to be getting close to 80 probably. So you got to make that plus, so you've got to be sponsored. So I do like the idea of smaller, like more accessible and like, these types of software platforms, startups and stuff, because it, gives an edge, and it's kind of beating. I hate red tape. I like things that beat up all the red tape. So
for sure. No, that's why we started the PointFlow Tech was one of our WellView competitor low code software. It's built for the small to mid-size operator, let's say like 2,500 wells or less, and we do just a flat. It's $125 per user per month. There's no contract. So being a former IT director, I got kicked in the face by these 3-year software contracts of like, hey, we're not using this anymore. Can we cancel it? And I'm like, yeah, you owe us a $190,000 buyout. It's like, we're not using this software. And they're like, yeah, sorry, you're on the hook for this. I never want to do that to people. It's all month to month. If you use it, great. If you don't, it's fine.
Oh, and then obviously, I'm assuming if somebody comes in and wants to do an annual, you'll work with them on a.
No, we're just flat. We're flat. 120,
okay.
125. Everybody gets the same price.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Let's just be real. That does make sense.
Yeah.
Everything is subscription, and I do like the being able to, again, I may have a job with these people that I need the software for, especially in my business. I could only need it for a month, but I'm on the hook for,
yeah,
figures. No,
we've got one client right now who's just one license. It's just him managing his wells, and we've got daily reporting. It's got a lot of stuff, man. We can do everything WellView can do, plus site view.
Really?
We've got some invoice coding and workflow, so kind of like open invoice. It can cut checks. We just built a revenue distribution module, and we just built a pumper app, all in the same login. Is ideally, you got one spot to go instead of going WellView, site view, prod view, open invoice, like all these different things. We're trying to build.
How are you hosting it? Is it
all in one?
Is it all online, or do you have like a downloadable, executable app? What's the?
So it's all built on QuickBase, which is our framework.
Okay.
So it's all cloud hosted, but
Okay.
we have an API that you can access your own data, push and pull for no additional cost. So we've got a couple clients that we've deployed, we pull down all their daily reports to their internal servers, and they integrate from there, and they kind of build it. They'll use their well header, right, as their golden record, and that becomes the backbone for their data warehouse. But yeah, I mean, the idea is it's to kind of challenge the status quo of the WellViews and the WellEZs of the world, or
I always appreciate that. Like, I really do. And I see it in my software world. There's some of them I'm really, hooked on, but I just like seeing the startups, and then I love stuff like QGIS. Forget it.
Yeah, QGIS is awesome.
Well, one thing I was going to ask you, now you've got an app and it's web hosted and stuff. How do you feel about your graphical user interface? Is that something you focused on? I haven't been on to look. How did you go about developing that? And would you say it's something that you focused on to be able to be better than WellView, or it wasn't something that you really thought about at all, and just went for intuitivity, I guess? Yeah,
it's so developing on a low code framework, you're a bit limited. I mean, it's open where we could HTML it up and make it pretty.
Okay.
But at the end of the day, our goal was to integrate as much as we could under one hood.
Yeah.
Versus kind of making it look pretty.
Yeah,
I think
sure.
our last iteration, we've cleaned up the dashboards a little bit and kind of made it look better that way. But no, we really just wanted one stop of we've got vehicle miles and spills in the same app. So the pumper putting his miles into the same place that the foreman is putting the daily report into the same place that the engineer is approving the invoice. That's our goal, is that it's all one application.
Well, and that's why you're on here, because I know you've got on this podcast, that's exactly what I'm talking about. It's all about getting the information and the communication into the same place. Now, and I know you live in this world, but everybody has their different solutions. Now we've got all the different software companies claiming they can do it. So, simplicity is really key. But yeah, I was just curious about that. I hadn't been on, but so it's kind of a more utilitarian approach. As you grow, absolutely, I would assume that would be something you'd be able to, start thinking about more. But the next thing I was going to ask, because you just mentioned an update. So as a kind of a software developer CEO, how do you manage the timing of these types of releases? Are these just, I know you've got people kind of helping with it, I believe. So they're kind of working on your ideas, and when they're done, you do the patch or the release.
Yeah. So
okay.
We being built on a low code framework, the technology, the backbone is managed and hosted by QuickBase. So when they push updates, they just push into our application.
Okay.
Our, I guess, rollouts are more capability related. For example, we recently did an AFE approval workflow. So that was one thing we always ran into in WellView, was it doesn't natively have an AFE workflow. So
when a geologist knows that WellView AFE stuff is messed up,
you had to use my AFE workflow I made in WellView, which is not native. But we've got a new one, and basically we build it in our demo app and test it, and we've got a delegation of authority, so you put people's approval levels in, then it'll send an email, and there's a button that just says approve or deny, and it collects a comment to Y on the AFE, and then tracks the AFE status. What we do then is we kind of record a demo on that, like, hey, we've got this AFE piece, and we send it to all our current customers, and we're like, we can deploy this in your application if you want it, or if you're happy with what you've got, we'll leave it alone. And then we kind of leave it up to them to drive.
So you don't push the updates, like the people have the choice of downloading it and doing it.
No, because it's crazy that people get heartburn when I tell them this, but every single operator deployment we have is different. Like everyone. Yeah. Because we customize it to what they want.
Their specific needs. Like they come to you with like a need, and you don't have a catch-all box. Like you go in and look at their individual needs, company size, what data they're concerned with, what aspect it is, and do a custom, build out for them.
Yep. I mean, we've got a framework that we start with, but we'll customize it to if you want to track API 10, right? Or if you want to go call this field, I don't know, BOLO number, or you want to call this IWell ID, like everything will get a little bit customized there. Or
so it can tie back to, like, I could see they're tying back to their whatever they're using and pushing it in, so they can tie it to their spreadsheets essentially.
Yeah. As soon as you log into the system, it's got wells, and you kind of start there, and then all these wells have their what we call well card, and then underneath the wells is where you got the jobs, the daily costs, track chemical inventory, that kind of stuff. And any customer we have, it gets about 20 hours of custom development. So when they have ideas, we'll have one that's like, hey, I want to track, or I want to have service company invoices, right? It's like, we've got a little service company, so we build a little piece of it for a service company. Like, that's the kind of stuff we do for our clients.
Well, it sounds like you're flexible. I know that you're really, you're basically a Swiss Army knife at all this stuff. And if you don't already know how to do it, you certainly know how to get there pretty quick.
Yeah, I got ChatGPT to help me out there.
I use it for
Lean
everything.
into those.
How do you think I'm pumping out all these videos?
Nice. There's some benefits to it, and there's some dangers too.
You got to be careful. Yeah, I'm sure you've been in there and seen how it bins information, and it gets crossed up, and it makes a lot of assumptions too, dude.
Absolutely.
So,
yeah, it's not coming for your day job yet. That's for sure.
No, definitely not. But it helps. Like, good grief.
Yeah, you had mentioned whiskey and data night, but there's no cadence to it. It's me and actually two of my competitors that we text all the time about different ideas, and we all kind of go the rising tide lifts all boats approach and help each other.
I like that too, where you've got people that are legit in your space, but you guys kind of interact. That's cool.
Yeah, for sure. There's been a couple clients that come to me and they're too big for kind of what I want to do, and I'll pass them off.
Nice.
But yeah, that's Dakota Analytics, and then Velocity Insight, and Drill Down Analytics are the three that I stay in touch with a lot. And then I got a competitor on the PointFlow Tech space here who runs rig reports. Like the five of us share ideas, but we were trying to do it quarterly, whiskey and data. So we really casual, kind of like this conversation, as we just pour a glass of whiskey at night after our kids go down and jump on a Teams call and talk about everything happening in like the operator data space and the IT space. And it started out as like...
You should do a geo segment at some point.
I mean, you can come on and host a piece. I enjoy guest speakers showing us pieces, but... Yeah, the idea was we're not going to record it. We can have real conversations.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so you can say stuff people feel
what's really going on, right? And I think people have become a little more comfortable with calling... there's a post on LinkedIn the other day that called out WellView on their new API piece that I get from the Formentera guys. But I think as we go... You just got to get better. Like, we have to continue to have those conversations on, like, kind of challenge the status quo.
Listen, you had some big people in there, man. Like, you don't have just like rookie people showing up to your whiskey and data. So,
it's a great time.
These are like big time players, dude. Like, I was the only geologist for sure.
Well, we've had a land guy on who gave a little land spiel and talked data. I mean, the common thread is data and kind of technology, but most of us are from the operator space, so we enjoy that piece.
Well, I could think of something to do actually, with where I'm signing up, and I'm going to have StarSteer in my big box software that I need. One of the things that StarSteer's big into right now is that they've got, these Python script and the ability to do just about anything. So one of the products I'm trying to get into is in, like, say, non-operated people who mostly have vertical wells, but all of a sudden, they're swimming in horizontal data, re-steer those and run the analytics on it. That would be a nice little talk, because, what I would be interested in is to see the analytics that the people that are attending whiskey and data are interested in from geologists. You know,
Yeah,
they're
for
looking
sure.
at money, what's come out of the ground, you know, reserves, this kind of stuff. You know, there's a lot of in the rock, real serious data that can come out of this. And so that's one of the things I'm kind of pushing. And you know, I'm into big data. You know, it worked out for me at Revolution because I'm one of the guys that understand the data and can, you know, pull what I need and get jobs done without, you know, a bunch of help. So
Yeah, I'd love to have you on. I think there's one guy in particular, Bobby Nealon, who's pretty heavy in Python. It'd be interesting to see you guys talk about kind of the new pieces of star steer there.
it's incredible. And I don't know if you know, I've been kind of going around and doing tech talks for them in Midland and Denver and stuff like that here in Oklahoma City.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, where it's headed right now is really, really cool.
Yeah, I mean, with the Python, technically you could pull any data
Well,
that
and
you
it's not
wanted,
just
massage
that,
it.
like you can do petrophysics in there.
Yeah.
Like I don't have to go to geographics. I can just load my curves and they've got already built out templates. If you need to change anything and you don't know how to do it, they've got this like script AI right there. Boop, clickety clack, whip it out, and there you go. You're freaking, you know, you've got your petrophysics right there in StarSteer, you know.
Yeah, I mean,
So
Python's pretty kind of limitless
it's unbelievable.
for
It's
what you
not
can do
even
there.
my best subject, you know,
Yeah.
but now with AI, we can do it. And if they don't get it right, you can try, it'll just give you another shot, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
So
For sure.
it's cool. Well, you know, we're getting pretty close, man. I expect you and I could probably do a few more of these as we go along here because there is quite a bit of overlap and you're kind of my IT guru. Honestly, you know, I'm in a position where I'm going to be interacting with more people. You know, you're obviously my IT guy, just like Mark Eisenberg is my geophysicist. So hopefully we can get some work going and this podcast kind of helps out with that.
Yeah, sounds great. I think if you go follow me on LinkedIn, and that's where I typically post the next whiskey and data night, and
Yep.
we could try to arrange something where you and Bobby talk about star steer and some Python and some ideas there. I mean, it's just like I said, casual idea generation. So if you throw that out and hear feedback from us data nerds, it'd be fun
I'm
to
one
talk
of you,
about.
man. That's great. Well, do you have anything to leave with us?
No, just go check out pointflow.co or pftech.co and give us a shot if you're an operator out there. We'd love to earn your business.
Awesome. Well, thanks for coming on, Jeff. For all of you watching, make sure you subscribe to my channel, hit the like, ping the notification bell, and to all of you IT people out there, keep our computers running.
You have to work for it. Don't be crazy. And work for your money.